Everyone knows what's
just letting
happening.
it happen.
But because you've been sitting there just watching this guy try and break this strap, you're just watching him do it
just
wrong.
pissed.
And you're like,
And boom, we are live. What's up, everybody? A Couple Casuals podcast. I am your host, Stefano. We got a good one for you guys today. My guest today is a Canadian stand-up comedian. He's absolutely crushing it online and on the stage. And he's the host of the very funny Man News. So with that being said, I want to welcome the amazing Andrew Packer.
hello.
Thanks for coming, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you, man. Fucking hell of a day. Good old Canadian day to come on the pod, eh?
Yeah. I've been just shitting on this country for the past month because it's just every February. I'm just like, why?
Dude, the
Why
longest
do we live
month.
here? Brutal.
Like the longest month. January and February are very, very tough, man. But I guess it's a part of being Canadian. Right?
It is.
Yeah. It's a hell of a thing.
We're all just trauma bonded in it.
We are. Yeah. If we can, we just fucking can fuck off for a couple weeks. Like for you, I guess it's good because you're touring, which we'll talk about today, here and there, like moving around.
Yeah.
So you get a little break now and again, but it's not easy, man. But I had Che Durant on. One of the things I talked about with him was your fucking set on Kill Tony, man. I really, really enjoyed that set, man. You absolutely crushed it. So I kind of wanted to start there and just get your perspective on that because you did a fantastic job. You look at some of the guys that hammer the minute, and like I don't know if I've seen such a good reception like that. Like that was a very, very good job, man. So I want to like get your perspective. What was that like? How did everything go down? How did it happen?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty surreal. I mean the whole moment of all of it and how quick it all happens. Like you're just sitting in this room for like 3 hours across the street in this bar. And
It's a bar, right?
Yeah, there's like 300 people in there that signed up, and you've got all varying different levels of mental health amongst all of them. So you're dealing with some people that are just like me, and all different levels of people that are really pursuing stand-up comedy as something that they want to do with their lives. And then you do have some people that just have the stars in their eyes, and they're just like dreamers and characters, and some people that have never done it before, which like blows my mind every time.
Yes.
Literally, I'd be talking to a guy, I'd be like, yeah, so like you've done this for a little bit, or like what's your, and he'd be like, nah, man, I'm just gonna get up there and we're gonna see what happens, and I'm like, what? Like, you don't want to like try like an open mic or anything? He's like, nah, man, trial by fire. That's what I say. You either got it or you don't. And
And sometimes those guys make the funniest sort of interactions between the hosts and them, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. So, yeah, I was just sitting there, and I thought it was over. Like, there was like already 5 bucket pulls already, I think. And then, they get on the mic and they go like, Andrew Packer, you're on Kill Tony. You got to run to the front of the bar and then meet the assistant director. And then he takes you have to run to the mothership. And then, there are like 12 dudes that all look like they spend all their time rolling jiu-jitsu, just standing there, just
muffed up ears.
Just huge dudes just ready to pat you down. And then they take your stuff, you throw it in a bin, and within 5 minutes, you're on stage.
Yeah, hell of a minute though, man. Hell of a minute. Did you have that kind of plan? Did you go off the cuff a little bit? What was the kind of approach?
I was doing like, it was my new opener kind of. I was since like I've been doing it for like a month, where I was like, oh, this is really starting to work, just because you're trying to get like a laugh really quick in an opener. It's like you're introducing yourself to an audience. So yeah, I mean, I had some ideas of what I was gonna do. I had like 5 different options of like, I was like, this will work, because a minute is so hard.
It's hard as fuck. That's why, like, I commend you guys. That's awesome, dude. And like to get that sort of reception, like, it's just the way the crowd received you and stuff it's very difficult.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty nerve-wracking, the whole thing. I was just trying to be grounded the whole time.
Dude, you stayed so calm in the pocket. Like, I guess that's what we can ask is the nerves. Like, were you fucking fired up? Were you nervous? What was the pregame jitters like?
From even just the running, like I literally had to run, and so your heart rate is going like crazy, and then you can hear the crowd and everything when you're backstage, and I've done like breath work for a number of years. Like I'm really a big fan of Wim Hof and that
Right.
kind of thing. So just for getting you grounded and in your body. So I was trying to do like a mini version of that backstage, and like William Montgomery was there.
He's so funny.
Yeah, backstage, and he could tell that I was just trying to like, I was literally trying to get my heart rate down because it was just like going crazy while this guy's just hitting this crazy guitar riff. I don't know if you watched the whole episode.
Yeah, I saw bits of it, but yeah.
In the episode just before me, this guy says he like rips the guitar like better than anybody they've ever seen. So they're like, okay, play it then. And then he pulls this like crazy guitar riff, and
Oh, so you
like
have to follow
the
that.
crowd is like, ah. And I'm there like, what's going on right now? And then William Montgomery looked at me and he was just like, this is good energy for you to be going out to. In a very kind way. And I was like, thanks, man. This is a very nice thing.
Exactly.
Like, we don't know each other.
Little words of encouragement before you get up there, right?
No, it was very nice. And then, yeah, he calls you up. You walk through the curtain, and there you go.
But yeah, then he said he sent you into the other room. How did it go in the other room? How did everything else go? Good. You went
That's
to the
another
show too, right?
Yeah. So he had me go up in front of Adam Egan, the booker of the mothership, and yeah, I had another good set. Of course, like the adrenaline of like doing Kill Tony, and then yeah. So I was trying to like put together what my set would be for 5 minutes, and I kind of I put something together. He said great set. The crowd reception was really good. So yeah, I mean that was a good introduction to meet Adam.
That's dope, man. You guys covered everything too, man. In like the little segment there, like you talked about your visa, you talked about your relationship, you talked about being Canadian, you talked about Trudeau at one point, which was fucking really quick, and then Big J kind of went at you a little bit, and you did fucking quick on the feet. That was hilarious. How did that feel?
That was cool. I mean, yeah, it was just like, cause you're standing there and I was just trying to be grounded. Like my brain's going crazy, but I was just trying to like focus on the weight of my feet in the stage.
Really? So like, do you feel it? Cause I get nervous for shit too, right?
Yeah.
You feel it in your fucking knees?
I mean, it's because I as a performer, you stop like associating those feelings with nerves. I feel like nerves and anxiety is not the right way. It's not really like an empowering way to think about it. It's more just like excitement. You care. You want it to go well.
So you just preface on, like, I guess you're watching your wording. It's not nerves. It's more excitement. It's adrenaline. It's kind of what keeps you dialed though, too.
And you can use that energy. It helps you. If you don't have that energy, then you don't care, and then you're not going to be able to perform or deliver. It's really like you're just kind of like harnessing energy when you're learning how to like deal with all that. So yeah, it was just kind of like, again, coming into, because you don't want to be like, you know, when you're having a conversation with somebody and you can tell they've already thought about what they're going to say before you're done speaking.
Right.
And so when they eventually say what they said, it doesn't feel like it flows. And then in a panel kind of thing, it can be, you know, problematic. Like it's not going to be funny if it's like 2 beats before. So to be thinking about like consciously, cerebrally, this is going to be funny, this is how I'm going to be funny, would already separate me from the moment. And that's why I was just trying to be grounded in the moment so that, you know, something could be offered up to me
and shoot from the hip, which it's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I love the areas that you guys covered. The Trudeau thing was freaking hilarious too. You talked about how he's unified the country in hating him, which was fucking quick. Was that on you shot from the hip? Was that on the spot? Like just straight
I mean, it's all kind of in the back end. Like I write every day. I'm always writing all the time. I'm trying to mine and write jokes always. So it's always just something like I don't know if that was the first time I had that thought, but it for sure was like, yeah, it was just in the back end of maybe somewhere it was scribbled in a notebook and then it came out over there.
Perfect.
You know?
I guess that's to your point about staying calm in the pocket, because then I know exactly what you're saying. It allows you to flow better. But then sometimes, you know, you want to, especially I think stand-up comedy probably generates the most nerves out of anything that you can do. Like, so you'd want to prepare, like for conversations too, I prepare too, but at the same time, I want to kind of make it natural. So I take that piece of advice seriously. That's really good. But yeah, you're Canadian as well. I want to talk a little bit about that, but I'm actually seeing Tony Hinchcliffe. He's coming to Canada in March. I think that's going to be pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, is he going to Niagara Falls?
Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
The coolest place. These guys come to the most interesting places. Like I saw.
No one's ever said that about Niagara Falls.
No, but that's what I'm getting at. Is like Tim Dillon. I saw him at the fucking Pickering Casino.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the last
It's
place.
casino gigs. It's casinos going, hey, we know that if
Yeah.
we have this person come, that's like 1,000 or 2,000, however 1,000 many people, a percentage of those people will gamble and earn our money back.
I know. I guess that's why they bring him in, right?
Yeah,
But
and then they don't really have to worry about ticket sales all that much.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, I was interested to go, but I'm like, out of all the places I think I would have saw Tim Dillon, I didn't think he'd be coming to fucking Pickering. To tell you, I didn't think that. I didn't think.
Yeah, it
I'd
looks
be-
weird on a tour date list.
And dude, obviously they talk about it too. They're like, "What the fuck?"
I mean, people are ripping on me right now because I have a bunch of tour dates out right now, and I'm going to Red Deer, and
Yeah.
Red Deer's like in between Calgary and Edmonton in Alberta, and so a bunch of people that like I love Calgary, but I'm going to Red Deer because there's a venue that I've been playing there for like 4 or 5 years, and it's called Bo's Bar and Stage, and they're dope. They're really nice people. It's a great venue, and I have a certain affinity to the cities that get shat on as the shitty ones because I'm
Yes.
from Oshawa. So
Oh, you're from Oshawa? You grew up in Oshawa?
Yeah. So Red Deer is the Oshawa of Alberta. So
Yeah.
in the way that
gotta
everyone
give 'em
talks
some love
about
too,
it.
right?
You got to give them some love.
And I'm sure there's some interesting, the different. Let's talk about your tour a little bit. Like different places you go, different vibes, different people that you meet. Does it kind of curate on how you deliver your comedy, or is it just like you kind of stick to a blueprint, or it depends on the crowd to change the vibe up a bit? What's it like?
What I'm doing is always evolving. It's, I mean, very rarely will you see me do the exact same set. If you came and saw me like in the same month or the same week, I'm always making adjustments and tweaks and changing stuff. And you have to change to kind of it's not so much like changing who I am or anything like that, but if I were to talk to you as opposed to talking to my mom, I might bring up topics and talk about certain different topics in different ways. If that makes sense, right? Like it's like angling into like when I'm performing and doing stand-up comedy, I'm having a conversation with those people that live there. And so when I'm in Toronto or anywhere in Canada, I'm talking to Canada, I'm talking to Toronto, I'm talking to Calgary, to different places that I am. When I go to Austin, I'm talking to America, I'm talking to Texas, I'm talking to Austin. And so it just changes. Like it would be weird if I did the jokes the exact same way because that's not how conversation works, you know? Yeah.
It's like the fluidity of it, right? Depending on where you are, it brings out uniqueness, right? Like I feel like, tell me if you agree. Life can be such like a cartoon at times. Like you see certain situations, like this better than anyone as a comedian. You just pluck the comedy of life as you kind of navigate throughout the world. Is that sort of how you approach comedy too? You just take the naturalness like of life and find the funny?
Yeah, well, you're following your own instinct, right? So that it's your own kind of taste. And yeah, like it does surprise me. Sometimes I try to think back on my material and think about where it came from or where the initial bud came from. And it's always somewhere different. Like a lot of it's like in struggle or moments of like having to learn something. And the relationship stuff is always having to learn something. So
Always,
that
man.
I mine a lot of humor out of that and that struggle of being somebody who's, clearly not knowing enough and always trying to grow and develop. But then like some observational jokes will just hit me. Like it'll be something that's kind of stirring in the back end because I've been writing. And then like I have this joke about how dudes everywhere say, let's go, or like we're all about going.
Like one of those?
Yeah. And it was because like I'd already been writing about it, thinking about it, but then I was just chilling and watching like a hockey game that was it was somewhere in the States. I think it was like maybe Dallas was playing somebody, and in the crowd right after a goal, it was like going through the crowd, and it did like two different groups of dudes that were like, let's go, and you could see they were mouthing that, and I'm like, holy shit, this is happening everywhere. And then the evolution of the encouragement of writing that bit kind of pushed along from there. So
I always thought that was a Canadian thing. I don't know. I guess
it's North America. It's everyone. And then, yeah, I mean, I've fleshed out the bit, like there are long versions and short versions, but like it goes deep. It's like the whole thing is guys are about going. Yeah. And it's cause it's cross like cultures, like even, in Spanish, they're like, vamos. Like
that's true. That's true.
Yeah. A bunch of different cultures all have like their version of yelling, go.
Yeah. So I guess it's kind of unanimous. Everybody can kind of relate to it. I never took it because Canadians have their go-to things like "let's go" or "fire it up" or like the way we talk. The lingo is pretty unique. Sort of like the hockey dialogue mixed into like our culture. Do you have some favorite spots that you like going, just like across the world? Is like, do you like going back to Texas, visiting there? Like, what are some spots you really enjoy?
I love going anywhere I haven't been. I just love traveling. So just seeing the differences amongst different cities and that like I would love to go everywhere at once. But yeah, right now the main places I'm going are New York, Texas, and then Toronto is like this little triangle loop I've been doing, with the exception of when I go on like full tours. And I do love Texas. Texas is very interesting right now.
What if we were just talking before pod about the Comedy Store? I went in 2019, like right before everybody kind of fucked off after the pandemic, and it's still probably awesome, but like at that time it was so unique, and now it seems like all those boys are over in Texas. Is that the vibe? Like everybody that was at the Comedy Store kind of moved over to with where Rogan is and them.
I mean, I don't know too much about LA. Because I just haven't been yet. I'm planning to go next month. But I don't know. For me, it's more so like it seems like I don't know if everyone moved. It's more like an amoeba, like growing and splitting off. You know, like
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
true.
a certain camp and a group of people moved there. But there's never gonna be like only bad comedians in LA. There are like so many incredible comedians that live there. So I think it's good. I think it's just growth, and it's all good for comedy in general, because it used to only be New York and LA as the main hubs, but now there is actually seems to be a lot to accomplish in Austin and a lot to do there. Like it's just very vibrant and great energy. And different rules culturally.
Really? Like in what way?
About what can be said and not said.
Yeah, it's they got to open. I guess that's sort of a Republican state. Like I guess they just don't.
Yeah,
give a
like
fuck.
they're a blue city and a red state, but
That's true.
I mean it's still very, very red. You know, on just like I don't know, they're just fun liberals, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, Toronto, New York. So the way it feels is West Coast is like the most like we worry about what you say situation, the very woke vibe. Then Toronto, New York, really they just care about money. Like, and this is just going ultra stereotypical of vibe of the city. It's like if it's profitable to be woke, we will be woke. If it's profitable to not be, I guess we're not going to be.
That's a good point. Never thought about it like
That's
that.
kind of the vibe of these cities. They're just really hard places to live, both of them, and so you need to like optimize to make enough money. And so what people care about kind of changes. Whereas on the West Coast, people are going for hikes and they're going out in nature and they're believing we're all one, having their mushroom trip on an island. They're doing that kind of thing, which I love that lifestyle too. It's great. I lived in Vancouver for a little bit, and then Austin is like, I think it's giving a little bit more what most of the country is, and if you were to go on the road, what you'd be kind of dealing with a little bit more. So you're dealing with a lot more people that are have kind of tradesman jobs and just like the culture is a lot more for the everyman, blue collar. Yeah. And then also, you can just say some wild stuff, which is bad a little bit for the new guys. The new comedians everyone just starts with shock humor. Like a new comic will usually go to shock because they just want to get a reaction out of the crowd, and that kind of works. But as you mature in comedy, you notice how quick and of a fall off that low hanging fruit is. So a lot of guys will just get stuck in that because they think that's like the goal of comedy, especially with like the Mecca Kill Tony, really rewarding that kind of humor, which yeah, I think any Austin comic that's under 5 years in should go to another scene for an extended period of time, whether it's like a month or 2 months or 3 or like a year. Just really like take those strategies for comedy that you've built and see how useful they are elsewhere, and build new ones.
Yes.
Because it's just tools in your belt. So, but then again, going there as someone who's like more like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years in, it's like really refreshing because you're like, oh, I can talk about different things here. Like and it's because the risk here to talking about things like race or sexuality and gender as a straight white man, the risk in a crowd is just so heavy here. Like I could lose the whole crowd just on the improper use of a certain type of flow in a sentence. It's like I'm and it's fair. Like I get why and stuff. I'm from here. I understand that. But then I go there and they're much more like loose about it. So then I can start exploring those topics and then bring what I explore there, bring it back here and figure out how to like, again, translate it here. And now I'm able to talk about these really taboo, uncomfortable topics that I've never been able to explore with audiences that have never trusted me to explore them. And then we all kind of go through this tension and release that is it's a really exciting new part of my act that I'm really pumped about.
Yeah, that must be a little bit of a challenge though too. Like having to, I guess you got to be like a chameleon. You got to kind of adapt to the crowd, it seems. And what's it like from a comedian's perspective, having to battle with that like wokeness, sort of maybe even cancel culture, but the sensitivity of it? How do you kind of pivot around it? What's your approach?
I think it's all bullshit. I think it's just like a really hot term for people to say when they're on, when they're like writing a newspaper or a blog post or like something to have on the headline on the news. It's all bullshit. Like it's literally, I was doing like a deep dive into like comedy and stuff, and I came across this history podcast that was pulling excerpts from the 1960s, and it was comics saying things like, you can't say anything these days, college crowds are too sensitive. It's always been like this.
It's like the same.
It's always, and it goes through ebbs and flows of noise, like the volume goes up and down. But it's just like when the volume goes up and then the media comes in and amplifies it, then attention gets built and then they make money.
That's the thing, right? Is now the only difference, I guess, would be technology, social media, right? They can amplify that. Like, look what this comedian said. Like we saw it with Chappelle, we saw it with so many different people. But
yeah,
it sucks because I look at it like comedy is the all natural form of just being you and saying what you want and taking a chance. Isn't that what comedy is? Like, to get a joke, you shoot it out there and it may not hit and may absolutely crush. Like, you need that freedom of that without being restricted on what you say.
Well, it can do both. Like, it can kill in the room, and then online it can like upset everybody. So, and it's just like, and that's fair. It's not even like, it's not people's fault. It's just they're different mediums. Like, just like if you think about it from like a psychology standpoint, or even just where you're at in your mind when you go to a comedy club, you bought a ticket, you got maybe a babysitter, you bought a couple drinks, you got your food, you're sitting there, you're ready to have a good time. Mm-hmm. Everything in your head is like, I want this to be a good time. And so then you are open to that, right? You're open to these new ideas. You'll go through something a little bit tense to see if there's a payoff, because the comedian has been paying off with stuff. So there's a trust that's been built. But if I'm like, taking a 15-minute break at work and I'm just scrolling while I'm on the toilet, and then some guy comes out and says some shit.
Like,
and
fuck this guy.
It's so much easier. I didn't buy in for this. Like, yeah. So it's just you're dealing with people at completely different states of mind.
Yeah. Like, why don't they just keep scrolling? Like I don't get it. But I think people are just, like, there's this rage culture, right? They want to fucking just say something. They want to be a part of something, or even
it's just attention.
Yeah,
everything's built on attention and engagement. Mm-hmm. Like that's what it is. It's just people, and then the apps directing towards it. Like, there's a whole new genre of content called rage bait content. It's amazing.
What's it called?
Rage bait content. I love it. It's actually very fun.
Is it like a Reddit thing or something?
No, it's you can find it on all the apps like Instagram, TikTok. It'll be like, I was watching one the other day where it was this guy, and he was he had a bunch of planks of wood, and it was on like a work site, and they were strapped on with those like thick vinyl straps that go around, and he was using a hammer to try to get the strap broken. And whilst trying to use the hammer to do that, you could see it digging into these fresh planks of wood, and you could see it doing that. And then his buddy goes like, dude, just use this, and throws him a knife. And then he starts using the dull end of the knife. And it's all just, he knows what he's doing. The guy shooting it knows what's happening. Everyone knows what's happening.
Just letting it happen.
But because you've been sitting there just watching this guy try and break the strap, you're just watching him do it wrong. And you're like, so mad. And I think it's hilarious because I'm like, wow, these guys have just it's good structure, you know. I think it's funny, but
yeah, that's interesting, man.
yeah.
Fucking the internet, man. Which I want to talk to you about man news and stuff like that. But before we do, let's stay on Toronto and comedy a little bit. What's it like, fucking? Because you grew. Correct me if I'm wrong. You sort of built your career doing stand up comedy in Toronto. Like that's where kind of the stomping grounds where it started.
Yeah.
Right. So like, what's it been like in that market of Toronto comedy, and what's it like now? Is it growing? What's your opinion on it?
Toronto's a great scene. It's gone through many different ebbs and flows of comedy, but like really good comics coming out of Canada.
Yes.
And you can see that just from so many people that are doing so well right here, right, or in different places that they've moved to. Like you think about Ryan Long, Chade Arena, Nima Naz, Mark Anthony Synagoga, all these guys absolutely crushing it, both on the online and in performing. And that's just a product of like how good the Toronto comedy scene was, you know, like 8 to 10 years ago when we were all kind of cutting our teeth here. I remember thinking there's a spot called the Corner Comedy Club. Of
course, yep.
And it opened up around when I started, at least when I started in Toronto. And I remember thinking, because it was all those guys I just mentioned, we were all just running sets, doing sets, trying to do 4 to 5 spots a week or a night. And so, you know, you're doing 15 to 20 spots a week, just hustling. And a lot of them would take place at that club. And I remember thinking that it kind of felt in the same energy of what I would read about the Comedy Store being back when like Jay Leno and a bunch of those guys were kind of just going around at the same time. The other late night guys were there too, but yeah. Jay Leno's not my favorite comic. That's why I'm like, why is that the only one I can remember that was there at that time?
Well, at that time, it was Jerry Seinfeld.
Jerry Seinfeld,
yeah, like quite a bit of the legends that came in and out of that place.
Yeah,
like a lot. But yeah, you're right. And that's why I love. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because I see you kind of working with all these absolute beauties coming out of Toronto, and it's amazing to see that because you. Maybe in all the art industries, you don't necessarily see that as much. And especially in Toronto, we can be really fucking hard on each other. So that's kind of what I want to ask you too, is like the collaborative perspective that you guys have versus, you know, the older times, maybe people were a little bit more cutthroat and competitive. How do you compare the two? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a product of just the nature of comedy. There is like a running narrative that in this country that there's like a very low ceiling and that there's not a lot of money to be made or to go around. And that is a problem. And I have my thoughts about that I don't think we need to get really into for the back end of that. But it's nice to see when you have a bunch of your friends that you like picked just at an open mic and you're like, I remember meeting Che at like a god awful open mic and being like, this guy, he's on it, you know? I remember seeing Ryan early on and be like, this guy's always crushing. And this is just from stage, just before any social following. Same with Mark, same with Nima. And it's just really validating and nice to watch all your friends that you've been running shows with and believing in for years that are actually doing well. And so it's pretty cool. There's like a camaraderie. Like we've all, you know, gone through it in Canada, toured this country like crazy. You've gone through the process of trying to get our visas. You know, you're paying $15,000 to the government in the States for the opportunity to maybe get allowed to work there. You're going down to the States and trying to find your footing in a population that's 10 times the size of Canada, and you have zero reputation there. So there are just so many hurdles we've come over together, and it's pretty dope when we look at each other and we're like, you know, you can see the path that we've both kind of taken and be like, you want to make some funny shit, and we make some funny shit.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome, man. You guys support each other and celebrate each other's wins, which especially in comedy, you don't always necessarily see that, right? Like guys can be very competitive with each other and stuff, like any industry. But yeah, that's dope to see, and it's amazing that Canadians are really sticking together, because you need to. Like, look at the grind. You said what, 9 years? At least.
Yeah.
That's a long time of grinding and, you know, sticking through it, but that's what it takes, right? To kind of get through to the other side. So it's amazing to see. But let's talk a little bit about your beginning of comedy. Like let's touch on that a little bit. Like, when did this journey begin? What made you even want to start doing comedy?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that revealed itself to you, you know, like I always loved comedy. Like I would watch it on TV all the time. And when other kids were listening to music on their iPods and I was listening to comedy albums.
What year are you? How old are you?
I'm 93, so
93. I'm a 92. Yeah, so we grew up around the same time. Like Russell Peters was like the fucking shit back then. I can remember all
exactly.
this. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I got the iPod Photo when it came out.
Okay. Dean knows that for sure. Yeah, he's got
Yeah,
all of them.
it was the first one that had a color screen, and
Cool.
so it had the circle wheel and everything, and it could play videos on it too. And so I would deliver newspapers when I was like 12, 13 years old, and I would just listen to Eddie Murphy, Raw and Delirious, Dane Cook, like Retaliation, Harmful Swallowed, I mean, phenomenal albums. And then Dave Chappelle, like, I think, and then Chris Rock, George Carlin. I just dove through all these guys. And it was wild to me to think back to that, even at 13 years old, to be listening to Eddie Murphy. And he's going deep into like relationships and stuff like that. And to still be cackling, without any of that lived experience. But that's part of like the truth of great comedy is universally recognized. And I would just be laughing my way through delivering papers.
That's awesome. So
That's kind of where it started.
So then, when's the first time that you got on stage? Because I think about this and I'm like, that is the most nerve-wracking thing. So like, what made you like, let's go fucking try this thing?
I just I was bored, and in university, like I would just get so bored with like studying. I was doing a degree in finance, and so I would start researching the biographies of comedians I liked. Just as, I don't know why, it just became like a pastime.
So you had an inclination for it, obviously.
Yeah, and then I just realized that everyone started it once. You don't realize that it's like, it just never clicked to me that these are all regular people that started pursuing this path. It just, I don't know why. At 20, I still hadn't clicked that together for the comedian. I don't know what I thought, if they just got plucked and said,
Yeah.
"Well, you are a comedian now."
There's a day one for everybody. I know what you're trying to say. Yeah.
So then I just went to an open mic and tried it, and the curiosity just hooked me real fast.
That's interesting, man. And then when the next step would be like, when did you say that this is happening? I'm doing this professionally. I don't care.
Well, yeah, a lot of sets passed before being able to think about doing it professionally. I feel lucky too, because I feel like I'm part of the generation. It was the first generation of comedians that you're seeing come through listening to podcasts to learn how to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Joe Rogan was popular when I started listening back in university when I started stand up, but he was having a lot of comedians on talking about process. And before that, like, you had to just be around comedians in order to talk about process. So you were able to like listen to a lot of different, like, how this all works, how comedians think, all that. I just consumed that like crazy. And then years went by, different jobs while doing like 10 to 20 spots every week, and someone told me early on that you had to do 2 hours of stage time minimum a week, which is not that hard now, but back then when you're doing 5-minute spots, you're like,
it's quite a bit of
how do I get this?
Yeah.
So I did tons of shows. There were a bunch of like venues in Toronto at that time that you could smoke weed inside of. And
I remember.
there was like 5 or 6 of them, and they would have like 3-hour shows, and they would happen 4 times a week on all of them.
Yes.
And so as a new comic, you could get 10 minutes real fast like that. So I started doing a lot of those, and then eventually, just through the years, I eventually started going full time about like 5 years ago now.
That's dope, man. Well,
Yeah.
dude, those ones were fucking hilarious. I remember I've been to a couple of them, but like that crowd's kind of hard though, because everyone could be like completely just stunned, like just boxed. So it's kind of hard to. Is it like hard to perform for them when they're just like literally stunned?
It's you learn things about the state of certain audiences, and it gives you like a good muscle to be a professional in those moments, because a lot of comedians, when they would do those rooms, you'd be dealing with people sometimes that have been in there for like 5, 6,
So they're just
7
zapped.
hours. They're gone, dude.
Yeah, dude.
So you had to kind of tune your act again to them to get a response out of them, and also appreciate what a response out of that person means.
Yes.
Because you could feel like if you're in a regular comedy club versus in one of those rooms, the audible sounds they're making, it's very gentle, very much. And so you could go up, and as long as you did what you do and connected with them and were confident about it, you could feel mentally like you just bombed, and then be walking off stage and have some guy grab you like, yo, you killed me, dude. Like, literally. So you learn how to like perform despite getting the energy back.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's such an interesting one. It's funny because I have a vivid memory of that. It's so funny. But how about the family support, man? When you tell your family and your loved ones, like, this is what I'm doing. What were their thoughts? Well, how did that sort of go down?
My parents, I feel like once I graduated from university, they were like, well, we're good parents. So go for
What's
it.
your background?
I'm just white.
They're just Canadian?
So white.
Love it.
Yeah.
I fucking love
Multiple
that.
generations of white.
All right.
What about you?
My background's Italian, but I'm born in Canada. So if I can't
Yeah.
speak the language, I can't go around saying, "Oh, I'm purebred Italian." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
just yeah. So
that's fair.
I'm white too, but tan. But yeah.
Yeah.
Canadian, which we'll talk about. But yeah, so they were just like, look,
I mean, my dad is very funny and loves comedy, and
Awesome.
so he was very, very vocally excited. I think my mom was a little bit concerned, but also she's always been super supportive. So, yeah, they were pretty supportive.
see, if you had immigrant parents, they'd be a little bit different. They probably would have condemned that dream. They probably would have laughed at you.
And it's such a common narrative amongst immigrant comedians to be like, well, my parent, they
disowned them or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then, and I used to like knock myself down for that, like think, oh, I have supportive parents. Can I even get good at this? It's just
'cause, like-
insane because it's like having supportive parents only helps.
Yes.
in
I know, but
everything.
there's a preconceived notion because like all the top, a lot of comedians, they have like a really some of them anyway, have a lot of a really fucked up story. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get how you can think and be like, well, I have actually a good parents. So I don't know. I don't fit in that category. Can this still work? I hear how that happened. But one of the things you talked about too on Kill Tony is your relationship. That's one of the things you and Jay kind of went back and forth on. How was her reception to it when you've been together for 13 years, I think you said? Well, now it's
Yeah.
probably more. And you did comedy for 9 and change, a little bit more.
Yeah.
So she's been with you the whole way.
The whole way through.
That's awesome, bro.
She was at the first open mic.
That is so cool and rare.
Yeah.
Very
yeah.
rare, right?
Yeah.
So what's her support been like? Was she like day one, like just go for it, or how did that kind of go down?
I mean, she's always been super supportive with the things that I want to do. And she's also, I think, really early on, she recognized that, like, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And I don't go half-assed. Like, I put everything into it. So I think she had confidence in me because of that. But if she was strictly based on, if she was going off strictly what I was doing on stage, that would have been rough. Like I'm very grateful that, because when you start, you just don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, anytime you start something new, though, man, like
Yeah.
it's difficult at the beginning. So it's awesome for coming from a guy's perspective to have that supportive woman in your life, right? Especially from the get go, and she was there from before. So that's really fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
really, really awesome and rare too, right? Let's talk a little bit about the content videos. Like obviously that plays a big role in what you do. When did that sort of those two roads meet? The stand-up comedy and then like, okay, I'm doing stand-up, but there's this platforms, Vine, TikTok, Instagram, all throughout this generations, and then you're like, I got to capitalize on this. How did those two roads meet?
Yeah, I kind of was making some stuff. I recognize it as somewhat important, but when you're doing like 5 shows a night and the shows are going well, it's hard to be like, oh, I gotta now spend all my time also doing this online thing. And then also I was working jobs during the first 5 years of stand-up. So you're like working full time, going out all night, trying to write as well. And so it was really hard to actually do it diligently before the pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit,
Yeah, everyone has that story, man.
Yeah.
I love it. It was kind of a blessing for a lot of people in a way. Their careers kind of took off during that
you
time.
have to. When things like that happen, you either find the silver lining or you let it hurt you. And so I just started making a lot of content because, I tried to redefine my whole identity, really, because my whole identity for those years had been like, I am a stand-up comedian.
Right.
I'm pursuing this.
And now you can't do that.
And then now you can't do that at all.
It's fucking insane.
It's insane. I didn't think it would happen. Like, I didn't think there was any scenario in life where, like, people weren't getting together
Yeah.
before the pandemic. So, yeah, then I just had to broaden my definition of what it meant to be a stand-up comedian and go, I am a comedian. So no matter what the form, whatever the format, whatever the medium, I'm finding a way to translate my humor through these different places. And then had to start all over again in comedy with these apps like TikTok. And, I made like hundreds and hundreds of TikToks before I found one that actually started to turn into a bit of a series that I could continue to build off of and everything. So it was just a whole nother process during the pandemic of just making these. And I started making them in the Philippines, actually. So my first 10,000 followers on TikTok, all Filipino. What's up?
So when you were down there, is that when the idea for Man News sort of conceptualized, or was that afterwards?
No, that came after. This was during the pandemic, like March 13th in 2020. I was in a small island in the Philippines.
Oh, you were down there?
Yeah.
How did that work coming back and all that?
Yeah. I got stuck.
Shit, eh?
Yeah.
They wouldn't let you back?
No, they sent enough planes for only about like 200 people, but there was 1,400 tourists on the island. So the government said within 48 hours we're shutting down all borders. And then, so they did that. And then some countries sent extra planes, like France sent extra planes. I think Germany did. I think the US did too, but Canada didn't send any planes. I just got an email from them that just said, hang tight.
Good luck. So how'd you get back?
It was 7 months.
Holy shit, dude. You were stuck in the Philippines? That's a lot of rice.
Yeah.
For 7 months?
Oh, man. I was full Filipino, dude. I was climbing coconut trees every day, harvesting coconut wine.
Were you solo down there, or were you with your old lady
No,
at least?
I was lucky because that I had my wife, then girlfriend, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or fiance then, yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's tough, man. Wow. Because I remember during that time, like, hearing that people were stuck places. So
Yeah.
fuck, dude.
It was nerve-wracking, but one of the best experiences of my life. I would never trade it for anything.
That's
Filipino
awesome.
people are the kindest people, like so nice. Even though it was very nerve-wracking for a couple weeks after things got settled and nobody knew was coming, like they really made you feel like you were a welcomed part of the community. And it was just really,
Where'd you
really
stay?
nice.
Like in the same spot?
Yeah, it was just Airbnb kept extending.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an end date, but I don't think anybody's coming here for the next little while.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's fucking hilarious, man.
Yeah.
That is so funny. Speaking about the content, I know sometimes like comedians, like they can sort of critique like the content creator, stand-up comedian. How do you find that? Do you think that a lot more people are just sort of like, you guys have your crew where you guys are kind of doubling down on both? Like, what's your opinion on like the sort of evolution of comedy with the content and then also the stand-up?
It's so easy to just shit talk and not do.
Right.
And so many people shit talking are not doing. And so that's the biggest thing. Like if you're a comic and you're shitting on somebody for making content and doing stand-up and you're not doing it.
I feel like it's mostly the older heads though, right?
I mean, I get it. It's like the job description changed, And there are some people even in this day and age that are stand-up comics that don't have any social presence, and they're making careers out of it, and it's going how it's going. It's just like it's just like in combat sports. I always make this parallel. Boxing was super popular, and boxing used to be like the main thing. But now what's dominant is MMA. Yeah. So it's not good enough to have great boxing. You gotta have, what's your ground game like? What's your your Muay Thai? What are your different submissions? Like, you have to be a multifaceted individual in order to be successful at this career path that appears to be one of the most fun ways to live your life in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely from the outside looking in, it's definitely interesting. It keeps you on your toes, keeps you dialed, you're moving around like crazy.
Why wouldn't it be ultra competitive? And if it's ultra competitive, it's going to get hard.
Yeah. Well, it's just I have a lot of respect for you guys using the avenues that you can, and they're hilarious videos. So I think the people that would pass critique on it maybe aren't able to do what you do in that sense, or maybe they're not comfortable doing the technological side of it, making the content and stuff like that. But I'm sure it's paid dividends to the shows. How much have you seen like the fans of Men News and like your content and some of the collaborations that you've done show up to events now?
Yeah, like I wouldn't have any fans if it wasn't for stuff that I was putting out online. It's like I've never been one of the people that the like industry in Canada, the comedy industry has really kind of done anything with for my entire career. So it's like everything that I've done, I've like set up my own tours when I was like 4 years in. Me, Che, and then another very funny comic, Jacob Balshin, who's another guy that's also crushing it online. He's so we just decided we'd start touring. So we just would call golf courses, breweries, any like you name it, arenas, like different like skating rinks, curling clubs. Like we would call every single different business in different towns, and then go do a tour with like 17 days back to back, no days off, legions, like throughout Canada, and we just would make it happen ourselves. And every time we come back from those, we'd be such better comics.
Sharpening your skill sets.
Yeah, like if like for me, it's just I guess that's just my personality and what I had to do. And so maybe that's like there's also like a benefit, like just like the pandemic being something that's like shitty, but then you find the silver lining. Like it's shitty that I didn't get recognized or picked up by somebody who could mentor and help my career in that way. But through it, I got these incredible peers and got the experience of doing it all myself, and got to go on tour with my best friends instead of some random people that I just got thrown together with. Like there's so many benefits to that. So I am very grateful for that. But yeah, you gotta, if no one's going to do it for you, you got to do it yourself.
That's exactly, yeah. You guys put in a lot of legwork. That's what Shay was saying too. That's on the horn, just calling, just getting things done. So now looking back and like that whole development, and to see like the success growing and bubbling and more eyes coming on you guys, how good does that feel? Like that hard work paid?
I mean, it's good, but I don't really
relish in it.
I don't relish in it much. Like I think after the Kill Tony set, I kind of like I wasn't sure, but it felt like it went well. And so I was kind of like, I think that went well.
Really?
And
you didn't think like right when you're done that was really good? That
well,
was really good.
like I went, so afterwards you go into Mitzi's, that bar that he has set up, which I mean, I love the whole Comedy Mothership is just beautiful. It's like it's like a love letter that Joe Rogan has written to comedy. Right. It's just awesome. So the Mitzi's is all, dedicated to the Mitzi Shore.
Right.
And so you're just in this bar and the vibes there, and all the bartenders are also original Comedy Store people that now he brought over.
Cool.
And so the vibe was just incredible. And like everyone, it goes from everyone looking at you like, who the fuck are you, to like there's a switch that night that happens just for that one night kind of. But it switches, and all the door guys, everybody that's around is like, yo, you're the fucking man. So like that night I relished in it a bit, had a bunch of drinks, got to chat with, it was really cool meeting the band.
Yes.
Because these guys, like, I don't know if you know this, but they tour arenas like all the time with different acts. They go into like major tours that artists have, and they go arena to arena. These guys are doing like 10, 20,000 person venues, because Austin is like one of the best live music scenes in the world.
Yes.
And so these guys just live there, and they're like, what should I do on a Monday night? Well, I guess I'll just go rip it on this YouTube show that gets millions of views every day.
They have so much fun though. They have so much fun. Yeah.
So it was just, I got to chat with them, and they were so nice, and you're just meeting all these people. So yeah, I got to enjoy that. But after that, I recovered after the day, or like that night, and I don't know. Then it's back to it. It's like, how do I know that this episode's gonna come out in like 2 weeks. So what's the game plan? And that week, I had like a whole bunch I got like some jokes that I've been sitting on for a while that I knew were really good, but I was maybe holding them for an opportunity. And I was like, all right, let's get like 5 clips together that are all ready to go, so that when that hits, I like drop these and then really like can capitalize on the moment,
Yeah, that's a very strategic play.
And just looking like I'm still out here hungry. Like I'm not feeling like I've made it in any sense of the word at this point. Like I really I still want a lot more for my career, and I just want to like really be solidified like a person that or a comedian that's built like a really exceptional body of work. and I'm still have so much. I have to get so much better in order to
Dude,
do
you
that.
guys of the younger generation that are doing comedy are are just so dialed from a different perspective. Like you talked about breath work, you talked about strategy of your comedy from the technological side, from the stand up side, just mingling with different crowds, but the humbleness that you guys have. I think that is going to bring that notion is going to bring comedy to a whole other level because you guys are coming at it from a different angle. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like people used to get fucked up and do they probably it's still fun to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
You also used to do the same act for like 25 years,
Yes.
or you used to. People used to just steal jokes and be like, "Well, good luck, dude. I'm out in Cincinnati now doing your bits."
And there was no social media to kind of confirm that. Yeah.
So it's just the industry's just matured.
Do you feel like a lot of like from your perspective, just lastly on the Kill Tony thing, because I'm so interested in it. Do you feel a lot of people like from when that episode aired? Did you like visibly know like your followers, kind of people just funneled into your networks and like what you do?
Yeah. I mean, it's still just a showcase. So, if it goes well, then it can do things. If it goes, so, then most people won't hear about it. So, I got lucky. Like, I actually got a lot of people. Well, it also helped because people recognize me for Man News that I've been doing because, the men have bonded on it. We do love, connecting on when the rocks fall and sploosh in the water.
Yes.
So all these guys kind of just knew me as the familiar face from that perspective. So there was this nice like convergence where the people that follow Man News and watch Kill Tony were like, bro, what?
Yes.
You're here?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Making that connection was probably hilarious. And one of the other things I want to talk to you about is being Canadian, man. Because being Canadian is a very unique thing. We talked about it at the beginning of the conversation. Obviously, outside right now is a fucking shitstorm going on. It's going to be hard to get out of here. But yeah, let's talk to you a little bit about being a Canadian comedian. What's it like from your perspective? Just you're bouncing around, you're meeting people. Like there was interactions on Kill Tony about you being Canadian. I'm sure it's a common thing that comes up. It's a very U.S. dominated market. What's it like being a Canadian comedian, man?
I mean, it's great. Like we have a good reputation. When you go to the States, everyone that you meet, yeah, I mean, at least amongst comics, they go like, "Oh, you're Canadian. Oh man, all these Canadians, the funny motherfuckers." Yeah. But that's part of because it's so hard to be allowed to work down there. That if you do go down there to work and get your paperwork, like,
dude, what's it like?
You gotta be serious.
Let's talk about that for 1 second because I'm curious from like a visa perspective. Like, what's the process? How do you work in the U.S.?
Well, I know. Hopefully, all your listeners don't just check right out here because it's a very bureaucratic like bullshit, right? But you have to basically make a case that you are an extraordinary individual, which is literally what they call it.
Really?
And you're basically making a case that no one can do what you do that's already in America. So you have to get at least 10 different letters of recommendation for different pivotal people in the industry. And then you have to get work orders from different companies in America that basically fill your years with work. So you're a stand-up comedian and you need a work order from somebody that covers 3 years. And then in order to get the full 3 years of the visa. And then when you're talking about lawyer fees and then also just like the fees of processing, you're looking at around 12,000 USD. And then it takes about probably like 8 months to compile all those that case. So 8 months of work and about 12,000 USD in order to be allowed to work for 3 years in America. And yeah,
that's pretty fucking intense, man. Like,
yeah.
Why do they make it so hard? Do you think for like outsiders to come in and work there? Like, what's the
they're trying to take our jobs.
Trying to take our fucking jobs. Yeah. Fuckers. I guess that's why there's the illegal immigration.
I don't know. It's America. It's the American dream. It's the size of the economy. Like Canada's so small. Like it's not even like a nationalistic thing when people say, "Oh, all our stars got to go down there to make it," or Canada doesn't really recognize you until you've made it down there. Well, you look at it as a population basis. Texas is a Canada.
It's true. We have
California
people here. Yeah, California's
there's a
Canada.
Yeah. New York, a Canada. You're like, it's just if a comedian never left Texas, I would probably, as a Canadian, not know who they were. And that's to be expected. So it's just there's so much opportunity to grow and expand, and you can tour endlessly in that country and never hit the same market because there's just so much. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, as a Canadian, there's just so much opportunity for our industry that you're like, you gotta do it.
You gotta kind of cross over, right? Would you say it's harder to become successful as a Canadian comedian, and do you have to cross over to the States to make that happen?
Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 spots in Canada that you can pull it off.
And where's that?
like you either like get in with the CBC and become like someone that they love and then have a show with them and then be the person that they refer to anytime things come up in comedy and get on all their talk shows. So that's like, there's like two guys. And then, or you have like a very successful show like Jerry D, or you get on to a very successful show that blows up outside of Canada, like Letterkenny. So you're Trailer Park Boys, Letterkenny. So like K. Trevor Wilson's an example of that. And then, or like Nikki Payne, who's just kind of been consistent and done enough things in this country that she has a good reputation and a name. So there's like, I don't know, like 5. I'm sure there's probably maybe like a few more that are doing decently, but it's just like a population isn't able to sustain somebody not leaving the country. We've got like 5 cities.
It's true. But would you say Canadian market's growing? From
Yeah.
a creative standpoint, like
Totally.
even for the worlds of podcasts, for the worlds of content creation, stand-up.
Yeah, it's not
comedians?
dire by any sense of the word. It's just like we need to pull down the wall of being able to work in America. You can still be Canadian and allowed to work places. I don't know. Everyone looks at it as like you leave and you become American. It's like, I don't know. No, it's like we travel. It's, you know.
You're always Canadian.
Yeah.
Which I guess that's my kind of last question for you. I want to talk to you a little bit about Canadian pride. As a Canadian comedian, are you proud to be Canadian?
I think, there's a lot of different, that's a pretty convoluted question. I am definitely proud of anyone who shares the bond of being in this country. And, yeah, I think nationalism is a good thing to have, but also it is a device that people use. And I use it in my stand-up. I play off of it and stuff. But I don't know. I like to go a little bit more human. You know, I'm just trying to be like I'm proud to try to be a good human and all what that means. And to just like root it in Canadian stuff. Like I think, yeah, it's just, it's a weak play, if that makes sense. Like, I probably should have just said yes.
No, man, you got to keep it real. You got to keep it
like
keep
it's
it
just
authentic.
like I don't know. Anytime you see, because people use nationalism to radicalize and stuff, and that's what I try to make fun of in my comedy. How stupid the angles of that are.
I guess from the perspective of like, I am American or I am Canadian and it's better than you in a kind of thing. Is that what you're kind of...
Exactly, and I'm making fun of that a lot in my set right now,
Yeah.
especially because it's during tense times and
Yes.
stuff, where Canadians are like, well, we're going to tell you.
We're not the 51st state.
Yeah, which it's funny, and like also Americans being like, oh, we're fucking number one, you know, those like classic narratives that get pushed for the stereotypical overarching national, you know, persona. I think should be made fun of. And so as a comic,
That's
I
your
can't be
job.
like, I'm proud to be Canadian, because it just would feel like I'm just rooting for the mass on something that's just so generic.
Okay, I hear exactly what you're saying. So you more represent like I am the individual Andrew Packer. That's
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I have a very, my perspective is a lot of different things. Like I can acknowledge that a lot of my, like to also as an artist, I want to be like, I'm an individual, but the thing is there's like 7 billion of us. Like I know there are like 7 Andrew Packers that are out there right now. And some with the exact same name. I follow one that's in London. He's a private investigator, or no, he's an investigator in the police. And so I've been following his career for
Does
a
he
number
know
of
about you
years.
too?
What's that?
Does he know about you?
Well, I don't know. I like to think that maybe I'm rooting him along, because at one point he was just reporting here and there, but now he's like the main guy that the group, like the community goes to when a murder happens. Anytime there's a murder in this this little borough in London, I hear about it because I got a little Google alert, and I'm rooting on investigator Andrew Packer.
Good on you, brother. Keep up the fucking good work.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I try to be an individual, but then there's this whole thing of being like I'm trying to relate to you guys, like as an audience. So if I'm talking about something relatable, well, it's going to be a shared experience, which doesn't make me unique.
Yes.
It's a bit of a
Conundrum, yeah.
conundrum that's always on my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hear you, man. I sort of share the same opinion. You're your individual first, and then Canada, you can be proud to where you're from, but the nationalism part, I sort of understand where that can get complicated.
Totally. Yeah. And just on a human level, I'm trying to connect to humans and people that are just living through it. And I'm touching on all the things. Of course, like culture is something that if you say you're of this part of culture, then that clinks together a whole bunch of shared experiences that then you can build rapport off of, which I really appreciate. Us whites, we don't have that. But for good reason, I guess. But I mean, my wife is Persian, so I've been getting to learn a lot about Persian culture, and it's so fun. Like all the different kind of, I mean, the food is incredible, but also just the little subtle things. Like in our wedding, for instance, we had a Persian ceremony alongside our traditional white people ceremony. And so there's just like a lot of cool shared experiences that come with that, where now, if you do touch on culture and things like that, that it does open you up to be able to bond with people.
Yeah, it's interesting that every culture has similarities, but also much big differences too. And that's awesome to see. But before we wrap up, man, what's next for Andrew Packer? What can we expect? What are you doing right now? You said you're on tour, right? So where are you headed next? What's the plan?
Going to Chicago next, and it's going to be a big year. I've got big things coming down the pipeline right now. I have this new show that I'm really excited about that's called Laugh It Off. Cool. And we've already shot 2 of them. The second episode should be coming out soon on YouTube. It's going to be available on all podcast platforms, but right now it's just available on YouTube. Cool. It's improvised stand-up comedy based on what the audience wants to let go of. So basically the audience submits topics from their lives that they're struggling with. They submit them anonymously. And then we have a lineup of comedians that on the spot turn that into comedy gold. We have an actual therapist that's sitting front row who's weighing in on the situation.
Shit, that's so cool.
Yeah.
What a concept, man.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that?
I mean, so the therapist is my dad.
That's even cooler.
Yeah.
That's even cooler.
So it was just like I really wanted to make a new show, and yeah, it's just kind of this thing that because I really like pulling it out of the crowd. And there's something about when you watch stand-up comedy now, especially because there's so many different really funny comedians, you can literally hone in and find somebody who's talking your experience. And so they talk about their lives, and then you relate and laugh about the shared experiences. So I was like, let's just cut out the middleman, and we'll take your experience you're struggling with right now, and we'll make comedy about that right now for you. And you can do it anonymously, or if people are in the crowd, they're allowed to put in more context if they like, and it just creates for a really fun, dynamic show.
That is a recipe for very, very, very funny interactions, and I'll be interested to see that, man. So I'm looking forward to it. Before we wrap up, I have a final segment I call Salute. It gives an opportunity to the guests to just end us off. Words of encouragement, statement, whatever you got for us.
Oh, wow, that's a lot of pressure.
You can say whatever you want. You can say, let's go. You can say whatever. Just end us off. What's next? Whatever. Up to you.
One thought that you guys need to leave with, I think mainly, find a way to get silliness in your life.
Yes. I fucking love it, man. Andrew Packer, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for trucking through the snow and coming here. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate all you guys. Until next time. Love you, nobody else. Ciao.